a new book with an attention-getting title, Tribal F's Up Digital. Discover the blind spots that sabotage digital adoption and derail your business process transformation. I'm joined by the authors today, Klaus Imping and Michael Ciatto. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Bob.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for joining me. Why do around 70% of digital transformations fail to achieve their objectives, Klaus?
That's a good question. It's a truly amazing number, isn't it?
For sure.
I think most of the enterprises call it a transformation, yet they approach it as a system implementation. They are very technology-centric, they are very tool-centric and tool-focused. And this is the wrong end to start it. You can't just implement a system and expect a transformation as a result. A transformation needs to be approached from the business angle and from the process angle. And technology is just a means to an end. And this is probably the biggest failure that many corporations do. And our book is about getting this right.
What do you mean by tribal? What does that word mean
So
to
from
you?
a tribal standpoint, it means bespoke systems and processes, right? So it requires human ingenuity. It's highly dependent upon the individual themselves. The process is not well documented. It's not easy to be systematized. Generally, it requires offline work, and that is kind of a hidden roadblock from transformation. And the challenge that we see is the people who own these tribal processes are generally kind of the top performers inside the company. It's the people the executive team looks to say, hey, how do we operate from a more granular level? And as a result, then they recodify things that they're doing today with new technology, which continues to cause the failures going forward.
When you talk about these tribal ways of working, however, and I wonder to what extent is that just a part of human nature, that people tend to work and focus and communicate in tribes, right? I mean, how does tribal sabotage digital, and how can you break through what seems to be a very natural human tendency?
Let's make the differentiation between the unintended tribal and the intended tribal. Of course, tribal is part of the nature, but if you want your processes, your operations to operate in a very cohesive and coordinated manner, you need to orchestrate all the folks and all the people to get the job done as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So you need to make up your mind how those processes should flow. And you need to make this the new habit of how people work. It's probably then the explicit and intended tribal, instead of people do the best they can do. They use their own tools, they use their Excel sheets to get the job done because they are not told any better. And this is the old habits and convert them into new, intended, explicitly designed habits.
Well, you talk about one of the solutions to this being the idea of focusing on workflows. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about what you're talking about there. Workflows, by their very nature, cut across silos and organizations. Yeah. I mean, what do you mean when you use that word?
Yeah, so I think we're looking at three different things. Number one, it means starting with kind of the end experience or the end objective in mind. So if you're defining workflows from how is it impacting the customer, then you have an ability to kind of redesign the way in which processes are structured. As opposed to kind of walking through a traditional, what is your current state business process mapping, and you're basically repeating actions and how things are handled today. I think the second thing that we identify is, to your comment, workflows have to be horizontal, right? And there's a couple chapters in the book where we speak to what is the right and the appropriate scope to make sure that you're driving cross-functional integration while also making sure that it's a digestible amount of content that you're trying to transform at a given time. So I think if you are not understanding both your upstream and downstream partners from a workflow standpoint, even if you solve within the silo, it breaks at the point of integration. So I think that's the second component that we're talking about. And then the third component we're talking about is being able to actually help structure workflow that's able to be monitored so that you can actually drive accountability and adoption, and you can identify where there's deviations from the intended workflow to go back from an education standpoint and a reinforcement standpoint.
Who in the organization should be leading this transformation?
So it needs to be a blended team, starting with the top management, mm-hmm. setting the vision, giving the directions. You need to engage people on all levels. You need to engage all those ones who are holding the knowledge about how things work, probably tribally mm-hmm. in the state where you start. You need to engage them, but you also need to give them a direction to really be transformative, to be disruptive, to not just put what they've done with tribal processes and with Excel so far in a probably more integrated tool set, but really rethink your operating model and make use of the power that digital means, that digital integration, that digital tools have to really set up a transformative, a disruptive new operating model.
So it starts in the C-suite then.
Absolutely.
But it has to kind of percolate all the way down. It can't just be one individual on whom everything depends.
No, of course not.
Right.
Yeah. No, completely agree. I mean, because in order to successfully transform the workflows, you need multiple different business functions to be aligned. So, there's a famous quote that if you have the C-suites aligned, that's worth, 10 to 20 points from an EPS standpoint, similar with regards from a transformation standpoint. So if the transformation is not tied to strategic objectives of the company, or the direction that the company is trying to go with regards to the market or the larger industry abroad, it's gonna end up failing, right? Because there'll be other priorities, there'll be other disruptions, right? Whether it's COVID, whether it's macroeconomic events, and the organization will get distracted.
Yeah.
So it has to be core to the strategic principles of the leadership team, which would then start in the C-suite.
If I'm a company looking to achieve digital transformation, I might be tempted to turn to a system integrator. The very name suggests that that's the solution. You say in the book, no. Why not?
Because the system is not the solution. This is technology-centric. This is tool-centric. You need to approach transformation much broader. You need to start with an operating model. You need to drill it down into a process setup, into a roles and responsibility setup. Bring it down to the workflow level where the work flows, which determines the new normal, the new day-to-day life for those ones who are supposed to operate this model. So it's much more than a system implementation. If you start with the system side of the equation, you already have a high likelihood to fail. And a system implementer, a system integrator is supposed to implement systems. It's not supposed to transform things. You need to find a good blend between three different, capabilities and skills. You need strategic thinking. You need a strong competence in process design and operating model design, yet you also need the technology side of the equation and to really bring it down to the right level of detail and implement it also technically in the end of the day.
Quite a different paradigm. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I have to ask you one additional question. What is this thing you have with you? Please explain. Hold it up and explain what this is all about.
May I introduce you our good friend Kairos. This
Hello.
is Kairos. The ancient Greek, they had many gods. They had gods for everything and anything, and they allowed two gods for time. Kronos is the god of the time series, the continuity, the flow of things. His body is Kairos, and he's the god of the moment, of the decisive moment of making a decision. You just mentioned paradigms.
Yep.
Our ambition is not less with this book to change paradigms from tool and technology centricity back to process centricity. And shifting paradigms is requiring a courageous decision, is requiring leaders who take this decision and to say, hey, even though mainstream is technology centric, we are approaching this differently. And we have decided to initiate an award. And this is just the first sample of the award that we are going to award next year for the very first time, not only for fancy programs with cool new technology. Technology and innovation is just one dimension, but the most important dimension of this new award is that transformation is effectively adopted, has changed the way of the operational way of working. So this is the Kairos of the year. Stay tuned. It will be awarded next year for the very first time.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we'll be looking for that.
Thank you.
Well, once again, the title of the book, Tribal F's Up Digital. Discover the blind spots that sabotage digital adoption and derail your business process transformation. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today.
Thanks, Rob, for having us.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Bob.
you much.
I've been speaking with authors Klaus Imping and Michael Ciatto. Thank you very much for watching.